but specifically even more so in relationship to our health, because our body is made almost 70% by water. So just see what the effect, the sound, which includes the thoughts. Thoughts are also vibrations, thoughts are also that kind of a medium that can affect the matter. So everything is vibration, everything vibrates, the whole universe vibrates, from the smallest atom to the great galaxies, everything is vibration. So how does vibration affect us? That will be presented in this video through water. So please see, as I said, as much attentive as possible. Okay, so let's start. We're going to get a sound. Sound is going to bounce. Where is this? You don't have any connection? Or? Huh? Okay.
Water. Water, the most common substance on Earth. It is with us every moment of our lives. But do we know the secrets of this amazing element? Where did it come from? Who bestowed water on our planet? And why? The only such planet in the universe. Perhaps only water itself knows the answers to these questions. Nothing in the world is softer and more yielding than water. Yet it wears down the hard and strong, and none can overcome it, though anyone can conquer it. That which is yielding conquers the strong, and the soft overcomes that which is hard. Everyone knows this, but no one dares to live by it. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu wrote about water 2,500 years ago.
I mean, water as such has been extensively studied. I mean, it is well known that water has unusual properties, physico-chemical properties, when compared to other liquids.
No scientist has been able to explain, for example, why water's density increases below the freezing point and becomes less above freezing. Any substance contracts when it is cooled, but water does the opposite. It expands. People learned to exploit this unique property in the distant past. Inhabitants of the far north would quarry stone by pouring water into the cliff-face crevices before the frosts came. In the south, people pounded wooden wedges into cracks in the rock and then doused them with water. As they swelled, the wedges would break the stone. Much later, scientists established that water in pores and capillaries is capable of creating enormous levels of pressure. In a seed, for example, it reaches 400 atmospheres at the moment of germination. That's why a plant shoot can break through asphalt with ease.
It's such a small molecule as well. It is very specific that these properties are of water. And you won't find other molecules that have all of the similar anomalies.
Even if a single one of these anomalies were missing, life itself would not exist on the planet.
Every one of water's properties is unique, and they do not easily fit into the generally accepted laws of physics. Science has not yet been able to answer the question of why water is the only substance on the planet that can exist in three states: liquid, solid, and gaseous. Why does water have the highest surface tension of all liquids? Why is it the most powerful solvent on Earth? And how, in defiance of the Earth's gravity, is water able to rise through the trunks of gigantic trees against tens of atmospheres of pressure?
Вот сейчас мы сделали громадный шаг.
We have taken a great step forward. We have really understood that we know almost nothing about water. Therefore, it is a great step because this realization is followed by the desire to find something out.
Желание.
Southeast Asia. The year is 1956. The place is a secret military laboratory for developing and producing weapons of mass destruction. Work has been underway here for several years on a powerful new generation of bacteriological weapon. The scientists are discussing what properties this weapon should have at one of their protracted secret meetings. Suddenly, the session breaks off. All of the participants are taken to the hospital with symptoms of severe food poisoning. An investigation into what happened quickly hits a dead end. The scientists had consumed nothing except water from the carafes on their table. The water was tested. No harmful additives were found. Its chemical composition was H2O, and that's what the report said. Poisoning caused by ordinary water. "20 years later, a fantastic hypothesis was put forward. A hypothesis that could explain water's unpredictable behavior. Water has memory. Experiments done in many countries around the world have shown that water receives and makes an imprint of any outside influence, remembering everything that occurs in the space that surrounds it. Any substance coming into contact with water leaves a trace in the water. Had our ancestors guessed this when they used silver vessels to turn ordinary water into healing water?
It is today the best antibiotic that is made, as good in Afghanistan and Iraq. The American army uses this water, 1 atom per 100 million, to kill all the germs in a wound. So the President of the United States uses this water to keep infectious bugs from his hands. So I said, how can this water be?
As it records information, water acquires new properties, yet its chemical composition remains unchanged.
So their theory was the chemical composition of the water is important. Now the sensational news is that that is nonsense. The structure of is much more important than the chemical composition.
The structure of water means how its molecules are organized. We can see how water molecules join together into groups. These are called clusters. Scientists came up with the idea that these clusters work as memory cells of a certain sort, in which water records the whole history of its relationship with the world, as if on magnetic tape.
People don't think when you turn on the light, the water is changing. When you turn on the electric field from the power line, the water may change. So that is the direction of research.
The water, of course, remains water, but its structure, like a nervous system, reacts to any irritation. Modern instruments have made it possible to record the fact that within each of water's memory cells, there are 440,000 information panels, each of which is responsible for its own type of interaction with the environment.
If you consider a cluster as a group of specific molecules, then it can survive only a short amount of time. But if you consider it as a structure whereby molecules can leave and other molecules come in, the cluster can last effectively for a very long time.
The stability of the cluster structures confirm the hypothesis that water is capable of recording and storing information.
It may be the single most malleable computer, which can, it's like a computer memory. It's the memory of information. We must know how it is arranged It is like the alphabet. If I give you the alphabet, you don't know a word, you don't know a letter, you don't know a sentence. So the molecular structure is the alphabet of water. And you must make a sentence out of water. And you can change the sentence.
In the winter of 1881, the sailing ship Laura was on a course from Liverpool to San Francisco. On the third day of the voyage, a fire broke out on board. Among those abandoning ship was the captain, Neil Carey. The water supply soon ran out, and the crew experienced the torments of thirst growing by the hour. Later, when they reached shore safely after 3 terrible weeks adrift at sea, the captain, a man with a very level-headed attitude towards events, described what had saved them. "We were dreaming of fresh water," he said. "We began to imagine that the water around the lifeboat was turning from ocean blue to the greenish hue of fresh water. I summoned up my strength and scooped some up. When I tasted it, the water was fresh."
Well, take a famous event. When Jesus Christ turned water into wine. He didn't add some sugar or lactose, but he imparted an absolutely special property to the water. We have carried out many experiments on the effect that quite diverse factors have on samples of water. Magnetic fields, electrical fields, various objects, and also including a human presence and human emotions. And it became clear that positive and negative human emotions are the strongest element of influence.
Professor Korotkov's laboratory has conducted numerous experiments on the effect of human emotions on water. A group of people were asked to project onto a flask of water in front of them very positive emotions like love, tenderness, and concern. Then, the flask was replaced with another one, and the people were asked to project emotions of a different type: fear, aggression, hatred. After this, measurements were taken on the samples. The water exhibited changes that were clearly in one direction or another.
So love increases water's energy levels and stabilizes the water, while aggressive emotions reduce the energy and make radical changes in the water.
I hope to show people through my research that water has a memory of its own. Dr. Emoto's laboratory does research on water samples, which are subjected to various forms of outside influence. The impressions made upon the water are recorded by swiftly freezing it in a cryogenic chamber. This is what water heated in a microwave oven looks like. This is the effect of a mobile telephone. Somebody said thank you to this water. Excuse me. You disgust me. With modern technology, it is possible to structurize water artificially. When seeds were grown under laboratory conditions using this kind of water, the soy sprouts had 6 times greater photon radiation than when ordinary water was used. Using structurized water makes vegetables ripen faster and increases the amount of useful microelements and vegetable proteins several-fold.
If we look at the shoots, the treated ones were long, even, and strong, while the untreated ones were short, thin, and weak. If we look at the plants today, those from the selected seeds have all ripened, but the ones from non-selected seeds have not. We have to say that using structurized water really does affect the growth of vegetables and fruits.
For the purposes of irrigation, 20% less of this type of water is needed than when using ordinary water. No fertilizer was added to the soil or the water. The chemical composition remained the same, H2O. The only thing that had changed was its structure. At the present time, scientists can answer the question of how this happens, but science does not yet have an answer to the question of why. Depending on age, a human being is made up of 70 to 90% water. An adult drinks approximately 2.5 liters of water each day in order to sustain his normal life functions. Another 1.5 liters is absorbed through the skin during bathing or showering. Water makes a long and difficult journey before arriving in our homes.
It used to be common knowledge that a settlement could only occur where there was a natural source of water. Today, whether or not there is water in a place is of no importance, because we transport water for thousands of miles using high pressure.
In nature, rivers and streams always flow along a smoothly curving course. But any water supply system has multiple right-angle turns. The natural structure of the water breaks down more and more with each such turn.
Water from a water supply system which flows into our homes through pipes has various forms, crystals of various forms, but they are all deformed. That is, it may look like this. It can look like this or have these crystals in many other arrangements, but you won't see any symmetry or beauty.
Water that flows in a floor panel heating system is devitalized and rotten. It sucks energy out of the people, plants, and animals living in that house. It actually steals the energy.
It is well known that the water supply in many large cities is a closed-loop system. After undergoing aggressive chemical purification and passing through powerful filters, the water in these systems is returned to our homes, still remembering the chemicals and the violence it was subjected to. Even stronger, however, is the informational pollution that the water accumulates as it flows down miles of long pipes through thousands and thousands of houses and apartments.
We pollute water spiritually, and this happens on a huge scale. Why? The water adopts all of the hatred, all of the malice, the stress. The water is almost dead by the time it enters our body.
We subjected water to super weak magnetic field impulses. These fields are tens of thousands of times weaker than the Earth's natural magnetic field. That means they are negligibly small from the standpoint of modern science.
Fish were introduced into water that had been treated in this way, and the fish soon produced an unusual hatch of small fry. They differed radically from other fish to which they were related, though they looked as much alike as twins.
Gray stripes appear on the belly of all these males at once, along with colored spots, which had not been observed previously. These are called phenotype changes, and it is of fundamental importance that these changes appear not just in some of the treated fish, but in all of them at the same time. And these phenotype changes that we caused are not a hypothesis. They occurred in practice.
The experiment resulted in changes not only in the outward appearance of the fish, but also in their behavior. They began to react to outside stimuli in the same way. It was as if the whole school had acquired a collective mind.
A whole important area of problems came up, which had not been studied whatsoever. Therefore, it was decided that it would suffice to establish even just the fact that behavior could change the form of animals using only water, which fact, in and of itself, is very significant.
Используя только воду,
If water has such a strong effect, that is, we shouldn't make it public without thoroughly studying this.
значит, до полного изучения ее нельзя выпускать на люди.
Nowhere in the world is water the same. Breaking its way to the surface through minerals and ores, water assimilates the vibrations of the soil and information about its specific biological and energetic features.
We tested a sample of purified municipal water, which is sold in large bottles, and the producer puts a label on them which says it is the best water in the world. But it is empty and dead. True, it's pure and it's good, and some minerals have been added, but this is dead water in which there is no energetics and there is no life.
Most likely, people do not sense any particular difference between naturally pure and artificially purified water. But any animal will always choose water from a spring, because this water is loaded with natural energies. In all of the world's religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, it is the practice to recite a prayer before taking food, or to consecrate the food during major religious holidays. How often do we stop and think, what for? And how did the certainty arise in such dissimilar religions that this is the right thing to do? Why did something that science is only now trying to understand seem obvious to our ancestors? It turns out that the frequency of vibrations in the prayers of any religion uttered in any language is 8 hertz, which corresponds to the frequency of the oscillations of the Earth's magnetic field. Therefore, a prayer, pronounced with love, creates a harmonic structure in water, which is an ingredient of absolutely all food.
И сейчас мы уже имеем представление о том,
We now have some idea about how this happens through the structurization of water clusters, water molecules. Therefore, we can take some purely practical advice from this. To sit down at the table in a very good mood, and under no circumstances to dine with cruel or aggressive-minded people, because this will have a direct destructive effect on our health.
оказывает прямое разрушительное воздействие на наше здоровье.
In 1995, Dr. Masaru Emoto was the first one to record musical impressions on water. In Dr. Emoto's laboratory, they presented water with different types of music, after which they froze the water, and then under the microscope could clearly see the crystals that the water had formed. Here is what the music of Bach looks like. Mozart. Beethoven. Heavy rock.
Иногда это всплески определенные, эмоциональные, которые...
Sometimes it's just certain eruptions, emotional ones, which cause such absolutely negative results. I can't recall a case in which such a negative spewing out of emotions as this happened at a classical music concert.
Ну, вы вот такой отрицательный выброс эмоций.
Experiments show that aggression causes a sharp change in water's memory. Such water can provoke an aggressive state in hitherto calm people. Dr. Emoto conducted another groundbreaking experiment. He placed rice into 3 glass beakers and covered it with water. And then every day for a month he said thank you to one beaker. You're an idiot to the second. And the third one he completely ignored.
1 month, the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black. And the rice that was ignored began to rot. Every one of our actions, a thought, an emotion, an uttered word, separates from us and becomes part of the overall energo-informational environment. Informational dirt is poisoning the water, accumulating layer by layer in its memory. If that process were to continue endlessly, the water could, in essence, lose its mind. But it is endowed with a self-cleansing capacity. This occurs at the moment of phase transition, when it vaporizes, and then condenses and falls as rain, or when it freezes and then melts. Shaking off the informational grime, water preserves its basic structure, that is, the program for life.
Lights on? Okay, I hope that you remember some points, something out of this documentary.
Yes.
A lot of interesting things. I will ask questions next time, but this time I will just emphasize upon some of those. One of which is that the water, it's not just the structure of the molecule, which is presented here as something you might have never heard earlier. It's not just H2O, it's just some basic kind of a property of the water, but it has that subtle structure. So it's not just gross, like our body. Our body is not just gross, it's also subtle. And that subtlety is something that's not so perceivable. But that subtlety affects our mind, it affects our whole being, it affects definitely our subtle body, it affects our gross body, it affects us in so many ways. So everything is influencing us in a subtle and therefore in a gross way as well. Gross one, we might not be so much aware of it. You know, like that dog, which the water was given, you can give him a Bisleri or any other brand, whatever you may call it, you know, water, and then you give it something from, you know, maybe Ganga, Yamuna, and Himalayas or something. Way big difference, way big difference. There's no energy. There's no energy in the water mostly that we drink. There's no life, and we think it's good. It's not. It actually takes away our energy. Yeah. So everything is like this, and pretty much how the water is structured like this, it's the sound. Sound has the effect. If you ever wondered, when we do puja or something, why do we chant different mantras? We put in Achman drops of water, then we chant mantras, then we take and we purify ourselves also. Or we purify different items, or we prepare different Achmans like this, we also chant different mantras. Those mantras affect the structure of the water. Anyway, there's so many things like this, but at least two interesting examples were given. One with those scientists being poisoned. They had no idea why they were poisoned. They poisoned themselves. They were doing research on some biological type of weapons, and that kind of negative energy was projected onto the water, and water assumed those kind of property. They had a kind of food poisoning result. So that's amazing. That's really interesting how you can affect the water and how water can affect you. And then those sailors that were out on the sea for 3 weeks without water, and then just by thought, you see how the thought is also powerful, the meditation. They were dreaming, they said, a clear crystal water, and this could be ocean water. If you drink ocean water, you go mad because it's salty. It just drives a person mad and you die. But by the change of mind, by the change of consciousness like this, they were affecting water, and that water had a sweet taste. It's amazing what you can do with your mind. It's something that's worth seeing several times and doing a little research and studies about it. But the main thing is the sound, and the next time we're going to be discussing more about the sound and its effects and its properties. So, but at least I hope if you come next time again, you're most welcome, and very nice if you do, then you will have some background, you'll have some understanding, you know, how there is also that subtle level which affects us. Okay, any questions or comments on this? Yes?
Yeah, so all holy waters came from spiritual waters. So does it have memory from spiritual essence?
All holy waters come from spiritual. All holy waters remain holy waters, so yes.
And if we keep...
And you can, but then you can also affect them. You can also affect them. Holy places sometimes get polluted by so many people with polluted consciousness. That's also there. So it depends. Depends on the, because water can change on the gross material level. Definitely it can be affected anyway, good or bad. No. But in essence, as purest as it is, and it closest to its source, then definitely has its spiritual memory potency. That's why it is remain close. It has been known. I know I was in Rajasthan. In, let's say, I mean, there like in Jaipur, there is in the palace there are two big silver like kalashas, and it said that king was invited to come to England, and he was carrying Ganga in this, and he was drinking and using only that water. It's amazing. And that water remains fresh and pure and everything else. No? He just took Ganga with him. Okay.
So the vessels, does it impact water also?
Yes, it impacts. Depends on purity. It does impact. And even if something is written, if you would have something spiritual written on the container of that you hold the water in or something, that would add to the purity. And if it's not, then of course then it will contaminate. Plastic's not the best. Yes.
Prabhuji, in some of mantra meditation, it is practiced that they keep glass of water in front of them and they chant the name or any mantra, and after chanting they drink that water. Does this help?
Yeah, of course.
Can we do this?
It affects structure of the water in a more positive way.
Can we do with this our mantra?
That's what I do. I keep my bottle next to the machine which plays. So Prabhupada